Hello, everybody. Welcome to our talk today. We really hope that you're enjoying Flowtopia so far, and we hope you enjoy even more to come. I'm Stephen Walters. I'm a field CTO with GitLab, but I'm also an ambassador with the Value Stream Management Consortium. And I'm here today to have a chat with my fellow author of the Value Stream Reference Architectures paper, Dr. Craig Statham. Craig, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Stephen. Great to see you again. Hey, everybody. Great to be here at Flowtopia. Yeah, I'm Craig Statham. I'm Chief Software Architect with the Customer Intelligence Division at SAS Institute. I've been doing that role now for a few years, but spent most of my career as a senior manager running software teams of various types. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to have this chat today with you, Stephen. So let's get started.
Yeah. First of all, let's just say that we first published this paper in May of last year, and a second version has been published in August of this year that is available to download from the Value Stream Management Consortium. So go there, download it now. But let's first of all talk about how all of this began. And Craig, I want to ask you, and I'm sure everybody wants to know, why this was so important to you.
Oh wow, that's a great question. So I took on this role as being a software architect. As I said, after many years of being a software manager, and one of the things I'd seen over the years is how teams often struggle to sort of plan, prioritize work, just kind of get flow going, and it seemed difficult. And I'd read some articles around Conway's law and understanding Conway's law, and I kind of felt like as I moved into this role of architect, that if I was going to make effective change in the software architecture, I really needed to think about effective change in the team organization as well. I guess that's what happens when you put an architect in a role where he has been or she has been a manager for many years. You're kind of thinking about team organization a lot. Um, and so I'd read the book Team Topologies by Matthew Skelton and Manuel Paz. It came out in 2019, I think, right? And I was looking at my organization that I was working in and thinking, I don't know what teams types we have. I can't tell what team types we have in our organization, but there's got to be something here that can help. And then I saw you talking, Stephen, at a conference about value stream management. And I was kind of thinking there's got to be some connection here between VSM and team topologies, but I didn't know what it was, and I reached out to you, and we started chatting, right?
Yeah, and it seems so long ago, and so much has happened since. I think it was really a happy journey that we went along because it initially just started out as just a chat and a discussion, trying to find things out. Um, but it's how it developed from there because we started to think about, well, I think the key question was, how do you identify what your value streams were? And I think the response I got was guess. That was the response I gave you at the time.
It
And
was.
and yes, it was more around that can be an educated guess, it could be around products. But you said about there's got to be more of a scientific method behind
Yeah, I mean, I work for an analytics company, right? So what SAS does, we're all about analytics, right? And we're all about taking data and solving problems with that data and figuring out new information that helps us to kind of move forward. And as we were chatting, I was in my mind, I'm thinking there's got to be a solution for this, right? How do I identify the teams that are in my organization and where are my value streams? I mean, we know what's valuable to our customers. We know what they value in our product, but where are my value streams in this kind of messy organization that we kind of had?
it.
And that's what you and I got chatting about all of that. And I'd seen a presenter, I think it was Nikki Watts, talked about how to use graph theory to look at software architecture to identify whether or not your architecture was leaning towards being a distributed monolith. And I thought, hang on, architecture, software, they're related, right? So maybe we can use graph theory as a way to do analysis on team organization as well. And that's where we started down that path, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And really got into that.
And we're not here to give away spoilers. if people want to understand more about what we did with graph theory, please go and read the paper. I think it's just worth mentioning, though, the other highlights that we picked up along the way. I mean, one of the things that we recognized was that within graph theory, we talked about the team types that are talked about in team topologies, but we also wanted to look at the analysis around the team interactions, which is where we came up with the idea of cognitive slope, because the work effort isn't always balanced. Typically it will be 50-50 or 50-50-ish when you're in a collaborative kind of organization, but that's completely different when you're operating as a service because most of the effort is elsewhere. If you want to know more, go read the paper. And it's the same as well for facilitation. And those two dimensions led us into the fine dimensions.
Yes, yeah. Well, what was important was, I remember when we first started talking, was that we were talking all about flow, right? Value stream management. You can't avoid the word flow. You start talking about flow, and again, that was something that was kind of elusive in our organization. I mean, I'd read on queuing, queuing theories and being able to take data from Jira and be able to, figure out what flow is based upon things that are actually happening. But what were the predictors of flow, right? How could we kind of predict flow? And did that have a relationship to the organization? Because it felt like that things slowed down when there were more teams involved, right? Which is where you have handoffs and things between teams. And so we kind of started looking at, well, what is really flow? How does that relate to effort? And what are the other dimensions that you have in the world of knowledge work and software development? And that's where we then kind of recognized that there was also impediments that are slowing things down, right? And what do they look like? Where do they come from? But what is it that causes the flow in the first place? What are the needs and the requirements, the things that actually drive the flow? And that's where we came up with our four dimensions, right? The fine dimensions: flow, impediments, needs, and effort, and the relationship we have to those. Again, and they're called out in the paper. So if folks wants to kind of learn about the relationship between those dimensions, then go take a look at the paper. But that led us into another discovery, right, Steve? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and this was actually really interesting because with any kind of when you're following a scientific method and you're looking at a hypothesis, you need to experiment with it and you need to model it. So we did our first own unique models, and we started to see something strange in that no matter what we did, flow always degraded. And we wondered why, and then suddenly it just popped into the heads of, oh, well, hang on a minute, this happens in nature. It's the law of thermodynamics. Everything decays. It's about entropy, and that's what we called it, flow entropy.
Yeah.
A really interesting way of looking at things, the period of time before reset is related to a team's resilience. And so we came up with this factor of resilience, which is why we now talk about finer as well as fine. And it shows how the organizational structure impacts flow entropy and is a predicator of individual team resilience. I think now is actually a good point to just bring in an audience question. It's an interesting question for our audience. How many of you are 100% happy that your DevOps transformation is delivering all it should? We have four options for you. Everything it promised, still in progress but have a plan, still in progress but can't get to 100%, or it's just not delivering at all. Let's put that up. I'm sure we'll be very interested to hear about that.
Yeah. So Stephen, tell me, why, when we got talking about all of it, what was important to you? Because we were both hooked in this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we both had somewhat different needs. So what was it that was kind of firing you up to have these conversations?
Well, I've been in DevOps for 20 years, and I've been in value stream management now for going close to 10 years. And most of that start of that journey in value stream management started with value stream mapping. And with any kind of value stream mapping workshop, when you're talking with a customer, you ask them to identify a value stream that you can do that workshop on. And usually two questions follow. What is a value stream? Or I don't know what my value streams are. How can I identify them? And really it came from that is the fact that we needed a more scientific way in order to identify value streams and therefore be able to organize around them, because that's the only way you can really do genuine value stream mapping workshop. And there was also the fact that I'm a holistic thinker. I think big. I think at the helicopter level. So for me, any kind of adjustment in a value stream for an individual team potentially has an impact on the rest of the organization that we don't necessarily see from a value stream mapping workshop. And it can be expensive running lots of workshops for lots of teams, especially in very large scale enterprise organizations. So for me, it was finding a more logical and scientific way to do that, to achieve that identification and organization around value streams.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, go on.
should we ask another question at that point,
Oh
actually?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's
Okay.
do that.
So I think it's based upon what I've just said. It'd be interesting to know if our audience, if you understand how information flows in your organization, have you got a clear identity of what your value streams are, how they impact one another, and how they interact with each other? We've got four options. Yes, clearly. Yes, but it can improve. No, and we need improvement, or we don't see the need. So, be very interested to hear that one. Um, so how has all of this worked out for you at SAS? Because obviously you've been taking this and putting it into real life.
Yes, that's true. Yes, and it's been about a year or so ago now when we first sort of started applying VSRA to our organization, and it's had some tremendous outcomes for us. The key thing, as I said right at the beginning, was for us is that we really didn't understand our team types first of all, so we treated all of the teams the same. Which you kind of think is like sort of equitable, right? Treat everybody the same, but when you're dealing with a software organization, you've really got to understand those team types so that you can actually understand how those teams should interact with each other. What's their predominant interaction style? What should that be? So first of all, VSRA allowed us to identify our existing team topology. And if you're in any software organization, you may think that you don't have a team topology, but we've got news for you, right? Every software organization has a team topology. You just haven't seen it yet. VSRA, the value stream reference architecture, and the analysis and the techniques that we have allowed us to see that team topology. And what was really insightful for us is that we had 11 teams, and within those 11 teams, we found that less than 1/3 of those teams were actually stream aligned. So less than 1/3 of those teams were actually focused on delivering end user value to end users. All the other teams, the majority of the teams, were all these different supporting teams, these platform teams, complicated system teams, enabling teams. We had them all in there. So what we wanted to do was to essentially reorganize. We wanted to align ourselves with value for faster flow. So we recognized that we wanted those stream-aligned teams to be more of those, right? More stream-aligned teams, less supporting teams. You have to have the supporting teams, but we wanted to make sure we were leaning more to having more stream-aligned teams. And so we started playing with VSRA to look at different topologies that we might use. And actually, we went through several iterations of using the analysis without actually changing a thing in the real organization, because it was all about just sitting down with the tool and playing around with what would happen if we moved this team, if we changed this team, what if we took this team away, what if we added this team, and eventually we came up with a structure that felt good to us, and the analysis was actually telling us it had better flow, and so we applied that to the organization. We reorged, and ever since we reorged, the amount of value that we've been able to generate more quickly has been phenomenal. We're now more than half of our teams are stream aligned, and it feels like the team have much more. Kind of we had good psychological safety anyway, but the team welfare just felt better. People felt better about working in this new organization. I think that was because they understood the interactions with
Can I
each
just
other.
make a point there, an interesting point, because this is something that's come up recently in discussions that I've had, which is when you're applying metrics into an organization, quite often what's measured is the work. Instead of what we're looking at here is the measurement of the teams, because if you're measuring the work, you're not considering the psychological safety or the cognitive load on
Yeah.
the individuals. You're just measuring to make sure that the work gets done quickly enough. And that really is a very poignant fact about the value stream reference architecture, is that in identifying the value streams, we're also identifying the teams And what we're looking at is team performance, not work performance.
Yes, yes, yes. The other really cool thing was that by creating this new organization, that new organization was an enabler for many other things.
Mm.
Because although we'd been doing DevOps, we thought we were doing DevOps for a long time, right? We had good telemetry in our systems because we're software as a service. We have teams who are actually involved in operating the software in production. We kind of felt like we were doing DevOps, but we never really got the benefits out of DevOps that we really expected to see. We were definitely stuck in that mid-tier stickiness of DevOps. What the new organization allowed us to do was to transform ourselves so that we could really now start enabling DevOps to actually work for us. We had an enabling team who was our cloud or is our cloud engineering team who facilitates the other teams to actually take ownership and responsibility of the things that they actually build, the software that they build. And so they can do that independently and autonomously. So we now have these streamlined teams who are not part of some monolithic build process anymore. They have their own build, but they're supported by the enabling team that allows them to do that. So that was really great. And we found that by doing this, we were able to actually to increase our deployment frequency. And whereby we went from a situation where we were deploying software once a month, we now deploy software into production, the actual production environment that our customers use, more than 500 times per month, which is a dramatic change for us. And we do that not because we have to, but because we want to. So that improved just what we were doing in terms of making smaller changes and doing that more frequently, which has also helped to reduce our production escapes. So we've seen a 14% reduction on production escapes year on year since doing this, which is tremendous because that's keeping our customers happy. And the mean time, because we're kind of measuring all of this with our Dora metrics, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
The lead time for getting change into production was reduced by 35%, which is great. So we're getting software to production much quicker. But probably the most important one was that the mean time to recover when there is an event, when there is something that is impacting our customers, improved by 95%, which is just phenomenal, right? So now, even when we have a problem, actually, sometimes our customers don't even know there's a problem. We fix it before it becomes a problem for them. But even when there is a problem, it's resolved extremely quickly. And all of that was enabled by our team topology and our organization, and using VSRA to reason about what organization would work best for us.
And one of the things that struck me when we've had our conversations over the time is the fact that your teams, because they've got much more clarity and they've got a greater purpose and they know exactly what their responsibilities are, they know what their guidelines and what their guardrails are. The whole developer experience has been much better for them. There's less
Yeah,
ambiguity and question marks and
yeah, yeah.
passing the buck and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the developer experience has been a real sea change as well. And in fact, because developers now, especially in those streamlined teams, are able to work more locally, they can actually test locally and implement locally within their own little world. We've stopped using shared resources for testing, and in fact, over the period, we've reduced some of our expenditure on testing resource servers and instances of EC2 and everything else that's set up, I think by $180,000 a year, which is phenomenal. That's a massive cost saving. So it's really, really, really impressive.
So let's ask our third question here, which is related to what we've just been talking about. We just want to ask the people in the audience, are you planning or are you aware of any plan to reorganize in the future? Four responses again. A, we frequently reorganize. B, in the next 6 months. C, in the next year or so. Or D, don't know, not planning to. So it'd be interesting to just see the results from that. Because one of the things that we're hoping to get from this is more agile organizational change management. And what we want is we also want to hear more feedback from yourselves. We have a VSRA community page, which is vsra-community.org. Please visit there. We have a community message site, which is hosted by the Value Stream Management Consortium. Please come on board, take part, we want to try and make it as lively as possible. Myself and Craig, we try to create blogs and write as often as we can, but we also invite others to join in to share their experiences, their lessons learned. And of course, from that site, you can also get version 2 of the paper. But perhaps the most interesting thing is there is a practical application for all of this, because also from that site, we have our new free online VSRA Fine Flow Toolkit. Craig, do you want to give us a quick demonstration?
Sure. Let me see if I can get my screen share working here. See if you can see this. Can you see this, Stephen?
Yep, that we can see that.
Okay, so this is the VSRA Fine Online Toolkit. As Stephen said, it's freely available from the links. If you go to VSRA-community.org, you can also find the link to this here. It's a relatively simple application. What you first have to do is enter your team organization. So this first section allows you to enter the teams that you have, and I'm showing you a really simple example here. In fact, this example is the generic case that's covered in the paper. Again, read the paper to understand this a little bit more. But there are 4 teams in this organization that we're setting up here. But you can enter the team names in this box and add them to the organization. You can choose if you want to try and pick what you think the interaction style might be for those teams, but it doesn't matter if you don't know. You can leave this as unknown. And when you've done that, when you've got your teams entered, simply go to the network and then sort of tie the teams together. So we do this by creating the relationship of who consumes from who else, right? Which is really about where are the dependencies between the teams, right? So in this example, team 1 is consuming from team 2, 3, and 4. Team 2 is consuming from team 3 and 4. Team 3 is consuming from team 4, and team 4 is consuming from no one else. So you can see there's a bit of a pattern here, right? To how this kind of works. But once you've entered the teams and you've entered how they're connected, what their network is, you can go to the analysis page and run the VSRA Fine analysis. This only takes a moment to run. You'll see it very soon. It'll give us some results. There we go. So we can see that the analysis has actually identified that in this organization, we have one team of each type. So you can see that team 1 is a streamline team. And if you think about it, it's consuming from all the other teams, right? So that kind of makes sense. Team 2 is a complicated subsystem team. It is not consuming from the streamline team because it produces to the streamline team, provides to the streamline team, but it's consuming from both platform teams and enabling teams. And team 3, which is a platform team, only consumes from the enabling team. And that is the generic pattern that we identified in the research paper. And that's the model that we use to do the graph analysis in order to identify the different team types you have. But imagine a much more complicated organization where that might be a little bit more tricky to understand, right? So here's another example. Yep. So I've got this one loaded up as well. And we can see this organization has a few more teams, right? And this is probably more like what you might see in a real organization. And Stephen, do you want to talk about where we came up with this organization and what this organization represents?
Yeah, but in the very early days when we were talking about value streams, I like to talk in analogies, and I use the analogy of a bakery where you've got the actual bakery itself producing goods, and then they add a new value stream, which is a shop that is added onto that. And the problems that can be caused, the fact that it can diversify your business, but when you create dependencies between the two, one can impact the other, and therefore the impact on value streams. So this whole thing is based around our fictitious company of Bakers Unlimited. And if you want to know more about that, you could go back to version 1 of the paper, but please have a look at the how-to guide, which is also available on the online page. And you can actually see this example in action. Now, on here, we've had this team follow all the rules. They're all collaborative, except for one team, which is finance support, third party, so they're as a service. And we can see where we have the dependencies on here. Now, if we were to, we probably just want to edit that bit.
Yeah. Start again.
I'll go back to, so what we can see here is we can see all of the dependencies that each of these teams have, where they consume things from certain teams. And you can see in particular storefront development, who is producing software for our sales, our store, and the bakery that is bakery development producing software for our bakery team. Please make a note, storefront development, it's being a good person. It's being collaborative with bakery development and it's reusing code from bakery development, and bakery development still support it. So therefore, storefront development is consuming from bakery development. If we run the VSRA find analysis from this, go Craig, let's go for it. Run
Yep.
find analysis on this one.
Yep.
We'll see something interesting happen with the team topology types. We're expecting bakery to be delivering to our bakery team, storefront to our store team. But as we can see, our storefront development team type is stream aligned, but our bakery development is a complicated subsystem, and its flow is lower than the storefront development team. The reason for this is because of that dependency, because bakery development is not just doing value add work, it's also supporting storefront development. If we go back to network, and if we remove that dependency, so we go to storefront development and we can remove consumes from bakery development. So in other words, we are decoupling these two pieces of functionality. And then if we rerun the analysis, and the results that we get, yep, we just need to click that button. And now we can see bakery development is a streamlined team. And look how its flow level has gone up. We have improved the flow and development to bakery development and not impacted storefront development at all. Both are producing the highest level of flows possible, which means that we are now concentrating on delivering business outcomes to the customer rather than being internally focused on supporting our own teams, which is a distraction from that delivery capability. Yeah. From that, do you want to show the report that can be produced, Craig?
Yeah, and just to let folks know, when you come to download a report here, you just have a couple of checkboxes you need to click, agree to the terms and conditions. You can also choose an option to actually create a QR code so that you can come back to the report and keep playing with it. But what you get is something like this, as a PDF file that downloads, which gives you all the information that you've entered, the teams that you've got here, the team types and their interactions, the interaction that you might have entered, what was used for analysis. Because we define interaction based upon the team type that is found, and also those flow values. There's impediments, needs, and effort, and resilience. And the resilience number we talked about earlier is shown here. And there's the QR code. So if people want to play with this particular example, snag the QR code right now. Punch that in on your phone or whatever device you're using. You can also use the link here. And you can play with the organization that we've just shown you. Feel free to mess around with that and see what happens.
Nice little QR code. Looks like a bit of a nod there to ELO, Mr. Blue Sky. Now, please, we welcome everybody to get on board and try out the tool. We really want people to try it out and provide us with feedback. Let us know what your results are. Let us know what's going on within your organization. And in particular, let us know if this has helped you to see how you can reorganize in a way that enables faster flow within your organization and improves the overall developer experience. And with that, we thank you very much. Craig, thank you for your time and for joining us here today.
Thank you, Steve.
You enjoyed the rest of Flowtopia. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.